Welcome to the final module of our mini course on removable prostheses. Today I want to show you how we finish these printed pieces. The printed bases, the printed model, and of course the little teeth. In this case here, I'm going to show you a small partial denture, okay? This one will be used as a temporary and will only cover or restore a dental element here. Where the dentist placed an implant, in other words, he installed the implant, did not provide immediate loading, and then decided to make a flexible partial denture just to address the patient's aesthetic needs. The first step is cutting off the supports. So I use a small plier, cut carefully to avoid any kind of deformation, separating the prosthesis from the first layer, which is the base layer of the 3D print. So we remove this first layer. Let's take off the excess supports, always very carefully, holding it gently so that the prosthesis does not suffer any distortion. And now we are going to test the fit and trim away any excess material using a burr, and then we will test the fit once again. So now we are going to finish it by removing the excess of the supports. Especially the supports that are located in the areas that contact the tooth. Carefully remove the supports that are in the area in contact with the teeth, and some that remained here on the inside. I remove them carefully. Here I am using a burr, a maxi cut. The next step now is to use a compacted Scotch-Brite to remove all the excess of supports or even of the resin itself, which ends up all uneven. With this Scotch-Brite, it already starts to give the finishing, not the polishing, but it gives the ideal finish, making the surface much smoother and already preparing the material to receive the final polish. Remember that the final polishing, since it will still be mechanical, is only done after the tooth is cemented and after the final curing, that is this prosthesis. It hasn't been cured yet. I removed the supports and it's still quite flexible. We washed it with alcohol, so it's still very flexible. I'm being careful here not to distort it, not to apply too much force. And then after that, we'll do the final curing. But first, we're going to cement the tooth. After trimming the supports, we'll test the fit to see how well this prosthesis actually sits, checking the adaptation of the clasp edges as well as the body of the prosthesis in relation to the printed model. The next step now is cementing the teeth onto the base. So for that, I'm going to use Flex's own printing resin to bond the tooth. So what I do next is carefully add a new layer, and then I'll place the tooth right after that step. Since the digital adaptation process was completed entirely through software, specifically via CAD, we will be able to determine with absolute precision exactly where to position this tooth on the base because of these pre-designed structural niches. Now I'm going to do a pre-cure, right? A preliminary photopolymerization to give the tooth an initial fixation. This isn't the final cementation yet, it's just to stabilize the tooth for now. In place. Just 20 seconds is enough time for this dental resin to stabilize the tooth. EA, so we can continue our work very well. Now that the tooth has been pre-cured and is already pre-positioned here, I'm going to fill in some small gaps that I still see where some bubbles might form. It's important that you don't leave any little piece or area uncovered so there's no infiltration, or else the tooth may become detached over time. I'm adding a little more to make it easier to polish and finish. Another 20 seconds. Now, a bit more added to the buccal side, checking if the proximal area is well sealed, and another 20 seconds on the buccal side. I apply the light to the buccal side The next step now is the application of colors or pigments to the tooth. That's right, before giving the final cure to the prosthesis. On the base of the prosthesis, it's important that we already do all the makeup of the teeth. And then, yes, we will cure it afterwards. Free from oxygen with glycerin and distilled water. For the application of the composite in the shade or color scale, I will use a drop of the intensive A, then I will use 1. I'll dilute a little bit of this. I took some of the intensive A and I'm going to dilute it in the glaze. Remove the excess. And then I'll do the application. Remember, it's always ideal for us to work with the tooth resin already in the color or shade scale that the doctor requested. In this case here, I printed with A1 resin and I need to reach the A2 shade. I carefully apply the very first layer, then I check it against my professional shade guide, and I can see that it's already looking very close to the standard A2 color. A pre-polymerization again for 20 seconds. And now, to finish the characterization, we're going to apply some Incisal or blue in certain areas, and also for the main grooves, we'll intensify them with the terracotta color. For the next step, we are going to use terracotta for the grooves on the occlusal surface. And the aqua color for the entire application of the Incisal. For applying the grooves, I always like to use an extra fine brush for the application. Of the main and secondary grooves. In this case, I'm not diluting this composite. I am leaving it very intense, so it really marks the little grooves of the tooth. Using another brush specifically designated for the Incisal color, I also personally like to work with an extra fine brush and just one more small drop of glaze. To make this brush really pointed. And now, yes, I'm going to carefully take a small, precise amount of the material and gently apply it directly across the surface of the marginal ridges and over the very tips of the cusps. The main ones, right? Buccal, vestibular, distal, and distal, buccal, and in the middle, buccal, a little on the marginal ridges, a little on the edge. And here we have a very complete, very beautiful characterization. For the finishing, we have two options. We can do the cementation, the characterization of the tooth, and then we can put it to polymerize in glycerin for 20 minutes. Or if you want a faster polish, a quicker polishing method, we recommend that you place it in glycerin for 10 minutes, dry it well, wash it, dry it well again, and then apply a layer of Adaptiflex over the entire external surface of the prosthesis. Then, yes, put it back in the glycerin for another 10 minutes and you have your polished piece. For more information, visit the MakerTech website.